All right, everybody. John can't make it tonight, so he asked me to fill in for him and chair the meeting. So that's what I'm going to do. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:05 of the Public Safety Committee meeting, and we'll start with roll call.
Okay, John will not be here. Seth,
Here.
Crystal, here, Todd,
Here.
and Steve.
Here.
All right, second agenda item is first period for public comment. Any members of the public that wish to make a comment, now would be the time. There's a microphone at the podium, and please state your name, address, and try to keep your comments to about 3 minutes.
Sheriff Roy Torgerson, and I would like to have the opportunity to speak during your agenda item number 3, or I can speak now.
I think it's fine to have you during the agenda item.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? All right, moving on. Item number 3, discussion regarding police department dispatch positions for 2026.
Thank you, Mayor. It was brought up last Tuesday. We tabled the item. It was brought to my attention last Tuesday that it was discussed at the budget hearing on the same day of the meeting, that there was possibility of losing the second shift dispatch. You guys as a committee agreed to postpone it or talk about it again in another week. So here we are today. I have asked, and from the direction of a couple of the members, of getting more data so you guys can make an informed decision. So then I would actually like to turn it over to Annette and Corinna, our 2 dispatchers, created a kind of a PowerPoint of what this would mean to the city, its communities, and its citizens. So Nate, this would be the thumb drive.
Go ahead. Just a picture of Corinna and I, and between the 2 of us, there is over 23 years of dispatch experience. Corinna with the Sheriff's Department and taking 911 calls and working there, and me with the Police Department.
So this slide contains the total calls for service overall, including from the Sheriff's Department and as well as Viroqua Police Department. So this information is also available on the City of Viroqua website under the Police Department tab. As you can see, in January of 2025, there was a total calls for service of 559. On down the line, you know, they're averaging anywhere from 400 to 500 calls a month about. September, so the calls for service down at the bottom to date as of September 15th, which was last week when we found out that a position was potentially being lost, to the year, 3,963 calls. Out of those calls, first shift dispatch has taken, and whether it came in on a 911 call that the county started, first shift has taken their own or worked on what the county brought over to the police department, 1,442. Second shift dispatch has done the same, 1,428. After hours, weekends, holidays, and vacation, that number there, the 1,093, those are specifically just to Vernon County. So as you can see, first and second shift with Viroqua Police Department has taken 2/3 of the total calls for service for the year, leaving a third or so with vacation, after hours, weekends, holidays for that 1,093.
Oh, just hold on to that one. Also, just another note on here, these figures can be found on the city website. Corinna's worked on the website, so I don't know if you click on any of those, Nate, it'll bring you up to like the January, February. Just clicking on that will take you to the city's website, and it'll take you right to that page.
Should.
And it'll take you and show you how many accidents and disorderly conducts. And so anytime that you want to find that, you can go to the city's website and get those numbers per month. And then if you go back to that same screen, if you look, if they eliminate the second shift dispatch, that 1,428 calls are going to be phone calls or calls for service that the county dispatch would then be handling. So there again, that's a huge number to transfer over to the sheriff's department. Okay, you can go ahead, Nate.
This slide here shows the breakdown per month, the calls for service. That is something that is created, that is valuable. This isn't including the calls we get from like the district's attorney's office asking us for a report. These are calls for service, whether it would be an accident, a lost and found, multiple things that initiate a call for service. So starting in January, 217 from the hours of 8 to 3, 195 from the hours of 3 to 11. A total of 412, where the number on the left, again, includes the county after hours. For the month of January, there was 559 calls. And if you continue on to the February, rough guesstimate, it's adding, the county has handled 100 more calls just on the weekends per month, roughly.
So this is a good one. It shows the breakdown of the different dispatch shifts and how many calls for service are created: shoplifting, disorderly conduct, lost and found, accidents, all of those kind of calls. But that's a good breakdown of the different calls that are created per shift.
And the month of September, we just did, those are just 2 weeks. That goes up until last week's meeting when we were asked to come up with some of these numbers. So that's only 2 weeks into, 15 days into the month of September.
Go ahead.
This slide just shows the total incoming calls for 2024, which was last year, was 19,103. And that does not include the after hours, weekends, holidays, vacation. That is just incoming calls to City of Viroqua Police Department. So this slide gives you the 2025 monthly phone calls. So the incoming phone calls Monday through Friday that come into the PD on average is about 1,900 phone calls a month. It's about 127 phone calls a day, which is Monday through Friday. There's 76 calls during the daytime, the first shift, and 51 calls in the evening hours. And those calls would include follow-up that the officers need to do. I contacted Johnny regarding a harassment call. So Johnny called back and we transfer that phone call directly to the officer on duty. If they are not on duty, we transfer that call to their voicemail, or if Johnny would like to call back when that officer is on duty, we take that information as well and let them call back during that time. Some of these phone calls also contain DMV questions. How late are you open? How much is it going to cost me for a title transfer? How much does it cost for a renewal? Human Services also calls over. P&P, probation and parole, they call over making sure that a report is done for something that happened most likely over the weekend. So they want the officer's report. Those are not documented calls for service. Those are just phone calls that we handle throughout the day.
Go ahead, Nate.
So far in 2025, our incoming phone calls to the police department is 15,485. So on average, that's 308 more phone calls a month compared to last year's numbers.
Go ahead. All right, we have many walk-ins that come into the police department. You're looking at, we've had 481 customers come in for DMV services. We get walk-in complaints, people stopping in and wanting to report, traffic violations or abuse or, and many things like that. Calls for service at the police department. We do fingerprinting, hundreds of drug drop-off medication box that we have in our lobby. So we have a good walk-in traffic. I think it's good for the community to feel comfortable walking into the police department. We provide that service. So I just think it's a huge thing. We currently have Narcan and that's free for the public, anyone that asks. So there's a lot of benefit to having the police department open as much as possible for the public.
These are our records requests so far for the year. A total so far is 289. We keep track. People walk in and would like their accident report. They have to fill out a sheet. Most of the time it is not ready because they had an accident on Friday and they come in Monday morning, wanted that report. So we have them fill out the form with their email. They either pay for it at that time. Some of them like to come back, and when the report is ready, they will pay for it at that time. In the mail, we go through LexisNexis. We get those. LexisNexis is a company that the insurance people utilize. So the insurance company contacts LexisNexis. LexisNexis contacts the police department. We get that report ready, send it back to LexisNexis. Then they take it, then they send it to the insurance company. However, the email, 202 emails so far for the year, well, through August, those are insurance companies that specifically email us for a copy of their report. We then send them, we create an invoice for them, email that invoice back to them. They cut the check in the mail, or one of our local insurance places in the city of Viroqua, he likes to come in and pay when the report is ready. So he will bring the money, we give him the receipt, and he picks up the report. But it's all done through email, conversation back and forth. Here's your invoice. The report is ready. He will come pay for it. And then out the door he goes. But that's another customer service that is provided because if it's not open after hours, some of that he stops after work and picks up that information.
And one thing in regards to these reports, it's not just a matter of printing it off and handing it to the person. They need to be redacted. The date of birth and driver's license and things like that have to come off, along with if there's videos, if there's minors on there, all the juveniles have to come off. If there's videos, that has to be blacked out. So it's not just a matter of printing it and handing it to someone. There's work that has to be done for each one of these reports. Okay, you can go ahead, Nate. Right, in regards to our DMV services, starting in 2025, there was an increase in the DMV counter fee and how much that we can charge. So that resulted in a higher profit for our department. Having the window open until 8 p.m., we can do those services up until 8 p.m. is a huge benefit to the public. We've been thanked many times by the public on they appreciate us being open later than they have the regular DMV so that they can come after their work hours. So that's been a huge benefit to the community, and they've showed their appreciation in that. You can go ahead to the next. Okay, this one.
So on the right, in 2024, the DMV income that the police department collected was 5,173. The numbers were the 468 renewals and the 235 title transfers. In 2025, so far, our DMV income has exceeded that number, and we are at $5,951.60. Because of that increase from the DMV, we don't have that many renewals compared to last year, but we still have 4 months left of the year. So 314 renewals with 169 title transfers. On the bottom underneath the car, from January until the 17th of September, there's our 481 customers. The DMV service totals that we have had to handle the money is $102,695.40. That's what the DMV fees have been that people have given us. With the increase for the profit for the PD, our projected DMV income for the PD this year should be close to that $8,268. Again, we still have, 3.5 months to gain another $3,000.
And just a note on the last slide, you don't have to go back. We are projecting next year to be a little bit higher for those DMV amounts. The farm plates and motorcycle plates get renewed even number of years. So we'll get all of the farm and motorcycle renewals again next year, which will make for a higher amount compared to this year. This screen here just has some different comparables in regards to dispatch and administrative assistance. Not all of the departments have their own dispatch, but there is a lot of paperwork in regards to the filing and the reports and redacting and just helping the public answering the phone. So if you look at the different departments, although not all of them dispatch, there's 2 administrative assistants or dispatch and administrative assistants to assist in, running the 24-hour department. So just a comparable in regards to some of the other surrounding communities on what they have for their administrative assistant help. Okay, we've got some of the duties for dispatch and administrative assistance. The UCR stands for Uniform Crime Reporting, and NIBRS stands for National Incident-Based Reporting System. This is a monthly report that is required by both federal and state. It pretty much gets all of the information on what kind of crimes there are in the city, who's committing the crimes, male or female, what is their race, what is their age. So it's a big process for that. I am currently the one that is doing all of the UCR reporting. Submitting the report itself isn't a huge deal. It's just making sure that all of the information is in there and correct. We are currently going through an audit, which they do every so often for the UCR. We're not quite complete with that, but I've been told that it is my responsibility as the UCR reporting person that I'm responsible for all the information. So I am going through each report that has reportable offenses and having to read each report to see if the date and time of the occurrence is in there and correct. Is the dollar amount correct? Are the charges correct? Is it showing up as NIBRS errors on there? So there's a lot of looking into. It's kind of a daily thing. It's going through each one of the cases, and if it's just a regular traffic, I don't have to worry about that. But anything else, the shoplifting, the DCs, the bail jumpings, the arrests, I have to look to make sure all that information is there and correct. And I've said it'd be great if officers could have that training so I wouldn't have to do that. But they said ultimately it's my responsibility as a UCR reporter to make sure that information is correct. So that is a huge part of my job is the UCR. The time agency coordinator, the TAC position is also a position that I have. Each department that uses the time system is required to have a TAC coordinator. They're responsible for updating employee statuses, their training. I sign them up for training, make sure everything is done, their certifications. It's a huge responsibility for the security of all of our equipment and the way our equipment and records are used. We just this year had a huge time system audit that I got to be part of. It was more extensive than they've ever had. And thank goodness we had our IT people to assist us with that, because most of the questions were ones that I could read 5 times and not really understand their technical language. It was a very time-consuming process. We did it over the phone with the IT people and finally got that one accomplished and went through. And again, I'm still working on the UCR audit, trying to get that one completed. But that, again, is a position that I hold. If I am no longer here, then someone else will have to go through that training that's in person and get that training and take over those responsibilities. Completing record requests, that's something that both Corinna and I tag team on. We, again, through the emails or through the mail, we work together on looking at the list and everything that we have to do, and we just kind of have a good system with that. Janitorial cleaning duties, we kind of both work on, doing, vacuuming and stuff in our office and garbages, and I've got my alarm set for every Wednesday night at 10:30 to take out the recycling, and so we just do some of the general janitorial stuff there, especially in our office. There again, the audit is mentioned, so I don't need to go into that further. Building security for community room meetings. We have different groups that come in and use our facility, whether it's hunter safety, 4-H. We have child visitations that are being held once a week in our PD, where the family feels more secure having that supervised visit in the building. If there is only one dispatch, again, that will eliminate certain hours that things can be done to assist the public. We contact tow companies if there's an accident. We contact the city street departments, utility departments if there's water problems, street departments. Again, if things happen after normal hours and there's only just one dispatch, that responsibility falls on the county dispatch, which sometimes they are swamped, and I'm sure would prefer not to have to call MG&E or a tow company. You can go ahead to the next. There again, contacting electrical companies, again, if there's power outages, things like that. We take in parking ticket payments. We send out courtesy letters if people have not made the payments. The iCrime Fighter is a system that we use for the officers to put their information into a file. All of the reports can go in there and pictures go in there. Corinna and I, we start iCrime Fighter cases and assist the officers in some of that by putting the driving record information, driver information, and starting the call in there. So we assist with that.
The iCrime Fighter as well is shared. It's a system, web-based, that goes to the district attorney's office too. So there's a special little button. If the call or if the crime needs to go to the DA's office, the officer needs to check that box and share that case with the DA. Those are some of the phone calls we get during the day that they forgot to check that. So Mary from the DA's office calls and say, hey, can you share this case number 123 with me? I'm not seeing it. I can't find the report. Going in there, again, that's not a call for service, but that's another phone call incoming to the police department. Filing and DMV monthly reports. You do the DMV monthly reports?
Yeah, the DMV monthly reports, we just keep a record. They send a billing to City Hall and then also to us. We have a spreadsheet that we have to keep all of those records for a certain length of time. So we just have to keep everything organized and copies of everything that we do DMV wise. Assisting officers in investigations. Sometimes we've got an accident that happens on Main Street and we've got the camera systems, or we were able to solve, there was a burglary that happened and it happened to be right by the cameras. By us having the time to look at the camera systems and go through that, that saves the officers their time to have to go through the camera systems. So it's just a way that we assist the officers. Monitoring, assisting crime victims. There again, that's just helping if they walk into the police department. We've got victims that come in and they're crying and they're upset, and so we can let them go in and sit in a quiet room till an officer can come and speak with them. We page fire and EMS, so we assist with that. Updating the website and Facebook information. Again, Corinna has put a lot of work into our website that's on the city site, pictures, information, MV1 form. She's got all kinds of links and everything on there. So if you haven't checked it out, you should look under the police department tab. She's done an amazing job on that. Updating our Facebook information. We've got a PowerPoint at the office that people can see the different employees there, different things about parking, winter snow events, so trying to keep that information updated. And then again, we've got the child custody supervision. Like I said, there's a gentleman that comes and has a supervised one, and it's in our interview room, with the child. So it is on camera and video. So if they need that for any reason, so just a service that we can provide since we're there.
These are just a few of the groups over the last year that have utilized the community room. Again, if there is not a second shift dispatcher or personnel to provide that service for the Hunter Safety Group or the Boy Scouts, it's a liability issue as well. You can't have anybody in the building without them being supervised. And we are there, we unlock the door for them, we clean up after they clean up after themselves, but making sure that the garbage is taken out when the Boy Scouts have their chocolate milk is a big one that sometimes they forget about bringing the garbage out. We go in and take that out so it's not rotten in there. And so those are just a few of the groups that have utilized that space.
I would just add, every one of those groups were after almost 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So none of these were able to meet during the day. So all the ones that you do see were always in the afternoon.
There is our picture of the drug take-back box that is currently available from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Last year, the police department took in roughly 376 pounds, 377 pounds, rounded up a little bit. Currently, we have had an immense amount of traffic just coming in. They don't even come in all the way to dispatch because it is an anonymous drop-off. But they know it's there. They come in the front door, drop it off, and leave. So currently, we've collected 762 pounds of medication that, is going in the right place and not in the wrong hands. We do have our big drug take-back day, October, I think that date is wrong. Is it the 18th?
Last Saturday in October 27th.
Yeah. So it's the last Saturday in October.
25th.
But that'll be at VMH and we'll get a significant amount to add to our currently 762 pounds.
And just if any of your constituents ever asked, this is a number I'm super proud with. That does not include the bottles when we weigh it. That is just the pills. So we take all the extra weight and, foam and cotton balls and packaging. That is just pills that we put them in for incineration. So again, again, I'm pretty passionate about it. So the last 15 years, Wisconsin has been number one, and then it's California and Texas, and it always floats a little bit. So Wisconsin is a huge drug take back, and you can obviously see what our citizens are doing just here in Viroqua. This is an amazing thing that doesn't end up in the river or toilets, and so this number is great.
So how will this decision impact the community? There will be a delay in records requests, as we've reiterated before. Annette and I have tag team on that in regards to sending out invoices and redactions and making sure that the payments are collected for those records. The payments for the records and/or parking tickets, they won't be able to be accepted after 4 p.m. where somebody gets done with work. They're not able to come in and pick up the record or pay for it. Again, the medication drop off, you've seen the numbers, that would be closed after 4. The DMV services, you've seen those numbers. That significant public service would not be available after 4. No meetings in the community room again, and most of them occur in the evening hours, usually 6 o'clock, 6:30. The building is locked up when the dispatcher/admin assistant is on vacation or calls in sick or has appointments to go to. When the building is locked or not staffed, you're not able to request a copy of the record or pick up the completed reports. Again, the picture of the records request, that is our actual file folder of the ones that we keep paper-wise that customers have filled out or that we've received in the mail. And then just not having a safe location for somebody who is in need from a domestic violence situation that is running to the police department to be safe. Not all domestic violence occurs at night. Some of them do during the day, but mostly those evening hours, bedtime, and the Viroqua Police Department is still open and available for them. Next slide.
This is a continuation if the building is locked and not staffed after 4 o'clock. No one available for mail and package deliveries. We do get deliveries from FedEx after 4 o'clock. Missing out on a lot of community walk-in traffic, which is huge. Again, I think it's important for people to have good relationships with the police department and the officers and dispatch. Personal property items, again, will only be available for pickup when a dispatcher is on duty. A lot of people are working until after 4, so makes it a little harder for them. Building maintenance, security, we kind of talked about that some. You get the heating, air conditioning, plumbing people, they can't be alone in the building. So if there's not someone in dispatch, then an officer or someone has to do it, or they just can't be there to do the repairs. Transcribing telephonic search warrants, that gets done a lot of times at night. That's something that in dispatch that we do. Building locked when dispatcher's on vacation, sick, or has appointments. So at that point, since there's no part-time dispatch, if there's only one dispatcher right now, we kind of work together and switch around shifts as we need to make sure that it's covered, maybe more during the business day hours. But if you've got someone that takes a week off vacation and they're the only person, you've got 1 week of no emails getting answered and requests not being done, people not being able to pick things up or drop things off. So I think that's kind of a huge one there. Loss of income for DMV services. Again, that would be nothing after 4 o'clock when a lot of the people like to come after work. No evening meetings in the community room, as we discussed. No one able to pick up record requests, pay parking tickets. I am a notary, so I do notarize for the officers when they have their probable cause statements that they have to get. I've even had some of the officers, deputies from the sheriff's department come over and have me notarize things in the evening because there's no one else around to do it. So an advantage there. Go ahead, Nate. And how may this impact the Vernon County Sheriff's Department? When Viroqua Police Dispatch is closed from 3 to 11, on average, 51 calls a day will be forwarded to Vernon County Dispatch. So that's 255 calls a week on average. An additional 127 calls a day will be transferred to Vernon County Dispatch when a dispatcher is on vacation or sick. So that's 635 more calls a week on average coming in for the Sheriff's Department. A lack of knowledge of record requests pending. So all of a sudden you've got Vernon County Dispatch that's getting all of these calls and they don't know what our process is for what record requests or reports been sent. The other thing in regards to that is the Vernon County is not able to transfer calls to our officers' voicemails if they're not on duty. So if they take that phone call because it's afternoon or evening or the weekend, and the call is for an officer that's not on duty, they cannot just transfer it to our officers' voicemails. So they just have to tell them to call back, and then who knows what time they call back, so it could make for another call for the Sheriff's Department or for us. And then the other thing is radio traffic. There's times when the county is super busy, especially if you get bad storms and flooding and things like that. The officers are trying to get their airtime in there as well. So it's just going to be a big impact from what we can tell to the Sheriff's Department and their dispatch department, and then affecting the service to the city of Viroqua people, just because Vernon County Dispatch shouldn't have to know about the record requests. So again, it'll be a disadvantage all around. Go ahead with the next.
So this is our last slide here. If you have any questions, I know this is a lot of information. We do thank you for your consideration on keeping and seeing the importance of having two administrative assistants. Just as a final thought, for the last 30 years, there have been two dispatchers with the Viroqua Police Department. Is there less of a need now compared to the last 30 years with the city growing? You have multiple buildings going up, new Main Street apartments. We just ask for some consideration on keeping the two admin assistant positions. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. Questions?
Does it have to be directed at you? Can I ask Chief, how do we pay for it?
That would be a question for a sit down with the budget committee and, Nate, and crunch some numbers and see where there's any other, funds, and seeing where we can cut and slash. And I don't know. It's a team effort, and seeing if we can find that money.
Thank you. Sheriff, did you want to speak at this item?
So I think these two did a wonderful job of laying out what dispatchers do. I did it for 17 and a half years and I love my time in dispatch, and I think that dispatchers, they're the unsung heroes. They don't get the credit that they deserve. So, huge shout out to Nettie and Corinna for laying this out. This will affect the sheriff's office. We're going to be busier. I actually, for a period of time, when I was dispatching, and I would dispatch for the city, it was a lot, because there's a lot going on in this city, and keeping it safe, and that doesn't happen by accident. So if you do this, it is, we're gonna be busier over there, and there again, they laid out some of the calls, and I like how you know, they have the documented calls for service, but then they actually go into the phone system and say, well, how many times does the phone actually ring? And it's a lot. And they did a good job laying that out. We've done that before, and it's a little easier now with, you know, the VoIP phone systems, to get those numbers. But, just if it's just a minute phone call, that's still time that it takes. So, just, really happy with Annette and Corinna, and if we lose that second shift, it's going to be a lot busier at the county. So thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Can I ask him just one question? I wondered what percentage of the time that you're having dispatchers do work is for other entities, not just the county?
For like the other municipalities,
Mhm.
we get calls for them. As far as what percentage of the time, I'll just give you an example of like Reedstown. They don't have a police department there anymore, so we're responsible for the crimes, but we can't enforce any city or village ordinance without having a contract with those municipalities. So like Reedstown, their barking or their dog complaints or junk, that's we can't enforce that without a contract. So I don't have the exact number, but we get their phone calls.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Anything else for the sheriff?
Just, I guess, I know John Thompson mentioned that this has been brought up for 30 years to eliminate one of these positions. And over that 30 years, there's been a lot of different council members, mayors. Has it ever been on an agenda item to eliminate one of these positions? I wonder. Does anybody know? And if it has, there must have been a reason to keep this position, I guess. But I'm not sure if it has been or not. But,
I've not seen
but I know
it.
it's been talked about for many, many years, and through a lot of different mayors and councils, it's not been eliminated yet. So that's my position, I guess. And call volume isn't going to be any less in the future. Paperwork's not going to get less and less. It's just going to increase as far as I'm concerned. I know it's a big part of the budget and a way to cut it, but I'm just not sold on it, to be honest with you.
Thanks, Todd. Anything else on this item? You have anything? No? All right. We'll move on then to item number 4, which is possible closed session with Wisconsin statute 1985 1C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governing body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. And this is regarding police department staff.
This is Crystal, and I'd move that we move into closed session.
Steve, I'll second.
Roll call.
Seth,
Aye.
Crystal,
Aye.
Todd, and Steve.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. You'll have to use your mics because Seth is online.
Yeah,
So we'll need to use the
unfortunately.
microphone so he can hear the conversation.
Yeah, we will have to be careful because sound does travel onto the hallway, so we're just gonna have to try to be muted. I did try to turn Seth down a little bit here, but I need to pause recording here too as well.
All right, we are back in open session. Item number 5 is reconvene in open session with possible action on items discussed during closed session. There's no action to be taken, so we're going to move on to item number 6, which is discussion and possible action regarding the 2026 Police Department budget draft.
Chief, I don't know if the one that I passed on to.
Oh, that was just a couple hours ago.
So the Right.
one I'm acting under is the one I gave you after the budget. The one I would be acting, know my numbers on is the one I gave you Friday or Thursday last week. So
Yes, which
Yeah.
is that. And I'll,
what is the changes that I made
Correct.
was the ones I would like to present to these guys. And then technically, after what was
Yeah.
discussed in closed session, we can
right.
talk about the numbers that you just did a couple hours ago.
Okay. And I think that'll work. And I'll try to zoom in for struggling. Yeah. All right, go ahead, Rick. You won't have scrolling options for a half second here. Where do you want to go? Bottom?
I would just go to, bottom of this page. Or sorry, bottom of the first part of the section where it's the TR,
Oh, sure.
CR, auto.
That it?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
sorry, I just got to plug in. Go ahead and start it.
Okay, after the budget team met, they had pretty much proposed everything that was, I guess, not required, that was asked of me at the first when the department heads all met. So at the beginning, initially I asked just a few little items that I asked. So training was stayed the same. The TR control, which is usually our uniforms and tasers. I asked for an extra $2,000 to get that back. It used to be at 11,400. We are currently at 700, so I asked for $2,000 back, mostly just to offset some of our new officers that were hired, and uniforms are not cheap. So I did ask for $2,000. So I should back up just a second. So you're going to see on county or column M, these are the changes I did, but I'm talking about the initial one that I talked about maybe a month ago. Those were my asks. I asked for $2,000 for the uniforms, $3,000 for fuel. It is currently at 17,000. I wanted it back up to 20,000, which is very close to where we are spending $20,000 in fuel as we speak. So I asked for that. I asked for $1,000 for the training, or sorry, back up to, yeah. So those are my ask. And then I also asked our union negotiations. So we used 10 city wage comparisons through the union, through our officers, which includes 8 officers. So the only 2 that don't apply is actually myself and the assistant chief. So as the union negotiations out of those 10, the union team, I guess, committee.
Yeah.
However you want to describe them, the union team commission, saw that they wanted the officers to be from, depends on how you looked at it, 9 and 10 on those relative respected cities to be right about average. So with that, putting those officers at average was an increase of 12% on the first year, actually 12.87 for the senior officers, 2.5 for the second year, 2.5 for the third year. So then the ask that I just mentioned before was not minimal in any way, but just to try to get us up to where I've cut in the last couple of years. But then that would also include the wages for myself and the assistant chief and the dispatchers. So I asked for cost of living for the dispatchers at 5%, and then myself and the assistant chief to be comparable to what the officers got in regards to their increases. The numbers that we've had for our wage studies as well, with the same said cities is, again, I've kind of briefly talked about this at the last public safety meeting, but I am actually currently 9 out of the 10 same cities for the chief wages. The assistant chief is a little bit fluid because some of them consider their second command as a sergeant, as a lieutenant, not as assistant chief. So it depends on how you look at it. He's still below average of where he's at. So then the budget team came back and said the dispatcher is 5% for 2026. And then the chief and assistant chief are at 3%. What we are looking for, so we made cuts. I met with Nate. So we made some extra cuts to put us, myself and the assistant chief at the same wages. Why that is important is we also can't have our sergeant making more than our assistant chief. Our assistant chief being realistically right next to my wages as well. So it really breaks down the roles and responsibilities. And now more than I guess ever with the second shift dispatch with the possibility is the responsibilities are going to be put on to the first shift dispatchers and the assistant chief and the chief. So I asked for, after the meeting, we met with Nate. We put myself at the same wages that the officers got, myself and the assistant chief. I then took off those increases, which was 28,000, nope, wrong sheet. $21,533 difference. So then I looked for our budget for $21,533. So then and again, that was already set with the numbers that I asked for the increase. So I took away the $3,000 back from auto, which puts us back down to 17,000. I took away the $1,000 that I asked for traffic and control.
Rick, just to clarify, because that was one of my questions that we just didn't able to connect on today. I had $3,000 deducted from auto service. Do you intend that to be deducted from fuel instead?
Sorry, auto. It is auto.
Okay.
It is auto. I must have said fuel just there. Yes, auto. And the only reason I took it from auto is, again, we had a kind of weird year with two of our cars, just with the air conditioning car for one of the K9 units, and then transmission, something that was kind of totally unexpected, but we still have a pretty rarely new fleet, so I think that is very doable. So that will help with some minor costs, some tires, oil changes, and some quick, easy, the normal maintenance. We still have trying to utilize Mark as best we can. That was also discussed as Mark is also too busy to really do some of our oil changes, but he can do some of the cost savings for some labor that we saw a couple years ago. So I believe $3,000 is deducted there. I also then took away the training budget. We are at $8,000 currently we've always been at $10,000. Last year, we took away down to $8,000. So it's roughly on recommendation, $1,000 per officer. We have 10 officers. So 2 years ago, there it goes, 2025. So 2 years ago, 2024, we were at $10,000, $1,000 for training for each officer. Last year, I lowered it to $2,000. We are really close to 8,000, but again, we have new officers that we have to train because we lost quite a few. But we are at full staff right now, and to be honest with you, not tooting the own horn or anything. I'm able to almost teach every subject that we can. So I guess Bobby kind of told me, or assistant chief kind of told me to say this. Out of all the officers in the state of Wisconsin, again, there is only one master instructor in 3 things that is active, and it's me. So I can teach a lot of different things for the new officers. So I think that could be an easy cost savings for a year or two. There's a lot of benefit of, having the officers go to somebody else and not always listening to the boss. So that is something I do want to bring back relatively quickly, but that is something to offset, some cost savings. I think this is very doable for a year, maybe even 2 years, just with me teaching the guys and gals. Crescendo was about $300. So we have now been in the building for 4 years. There's some phones, and we have to look, and this is a conversation that Nate and I and Bobby did have. Our phones are weirdly taxed, and we're going to relook at some of our Crescendo things, but we've been in the building for a couple of years now where some of the phones just aren't being used, and we're paying, $30 for each phone. I mean, it's kind of like the one down here. I mean, if there's no use for it, why are we paying $30 for these Crescendo phones?
So sorry to interrupt, but it's $30 a month
A
for
month.
two phones.
For two phones.
At least that much. So like these phones you get billed on per month. It's probably closer to, depending on which ones, they might be $34. So they really add up. And to Rick's defense, like we purchased the phones before we really had moved into the building. And so as you move into space, you get a better idea of what you need and what you don't need. And so this is, I think, why you're bringing it up, because it's going to be the first cycle of the contract where we can sort of downshift out of how many phones we have.
So yes, we had a 5-year contract with Crescendo, and we're on our 5th year. So now we can entertain it, which hopefully even in a city hall can, ultimately entertain, I believe, next year then, to look and lower, what is not needed. Taking out $2,400, we pay, it would be $2,400 a year for Vernon Communications for our television. We took that away. And I know Nate says this is not a budgeted item, however, we pay for it. So then we would also lower our cell phones from 8 cell phones. So it's the phones that we have right here to take pictures of crime scenes, to get dispatched to different calls, use Crime Fighter. We have 8 of them, and how I've always justified that is we have quite a few people that are on call, whether it's your chief, assistant chief, your investigators, your canine handlers, and then you have to have some for the officers. So the normal patrol officers share one, so whoever's working is the one using their said cell phone. So then I was able to take from 8 to 4, which is a cost savings of $19.19 and 52 cents. And then the last one was our cleaning company. We pay $2,400 a month, or sorry, $2,400 a year, and cut that in half. So we still have it. So the officers aren't going to be still cleaning the building and not be in patrol. We would just cut it to, 1 or 1.5 times a month that they would show up. So very more limited, but we can cut that $1,200. So those cost savings, and then ultimately possibly losing the, dispatch was where my budget rough draft committee was suitable for the wages and the cuts.
Yeah. So just an FYI, Rick brought up the US cell phone and mentioned like, what's the difference, is it budgeted for? What we found, and this happens with every department's budget, where you go through, you do your best job budgeting. There's a couple areas, as Rick and I and Bobby were sitting down trying to see where cuts could be made, that we identified like, hey, this isn't a line item that we've actually specifically budgeted for in the past. And the US cellular bill was one of them. And so there was another one that was the county Cradle Point routing that you had talked about, and that also hadn't been specifically budgeted for. We've kind of done this evolution from sort of bulk budgeting to being just trying to get super specific and more granular in our budgeting. And so the police department's budget is still in that transitionary period. And so as we go along every year, you find some items like, oh, that hasn't been budgeted for. We need it. So you'll see in here, as we scroll down, I did note like, hey, how much is that going to cost to make sure we add that to budget? Because I think they've done a good job of paring it down, but it's still going to be a need for some of the reasons Rick explained to me, at least, about who needs to have them, the canine handlers, things like that. So just an FYI. Do you want to?
So, nope, that is all the, unless there's questions. I mean, I know Nate's going to kind of talk about a few more, just different numbers, but to suit those wages for first shift dispatch and the assistant chief and myself, finding some other cuts and making it kind of work, trying to make it work with the budget committee. And I guess 2 of them are sitting in this committee, but it's not the hat you're currently wearing, but to move forward.
So just as a way to explain this, thanks, Chief, is what I try to do here after talking with Rick and Bobby is we essentially have 2 budgets that were shown up here. This 2026 budget 1 is the budget that came out from the budget team. Okay. The 2026 budget 2 is the amended budget that the chief notified were some of the changes that he would like to see made after the budget team made their revisions, right? So we hadn't really done this with any of the other committees. So we're kind of moving a little ahead of the game. And so when you look at this variance, budget one to budget two, it's not showing the variance of the sample budget to 2025. It's actually just showing the difference and is helping to highlight some of those changes that the chief just indicated, right? Of this amount here and that amount here, and then the increase to the admin wages, right? That change from where we were at for the 3% back up to the 12+% that we were talking about. And so the other items that I had indicated down here, and again, this was done today and sent out at 2, and not a lot of time for anybody to take a real hard look at it, except for me, is, this would be just from the changes that the chief and Bobby made since the budget team sent them their numbers, it's still going to amount to $87,000 or $8,700 more to the budget. And then when you start talking about some of the things that were missed, like the MS Office licenses, we're because of CJIS requirements required to add more. I don't even think it's CJIS requirements. I think it's just licensing requirements, to be honest with you. We're required to add a number of additional standard. And it's because it's CJIS requirements that they have to be standard licenses and not basic. So it just costs more money per license. The US Cellular bill. And then we did get notified that the PD is going to need to replace 2 of their mobile data terminals, which are $4,500 piece. That one's a little iffy because that could go either way in either operating cost or a capital cost. We need to sort of sort that out a little bit. So I just have down here, depending on how you want to play it, on top of the increase that the budget team that's in there, which is from one year to the other, is a $29,000 increase to the police department budget. That was already what the budget team was proposing. After looking at the budget, add on top of that some of this stuff could be anywhere from another 20,000 to another 27,000, just depend. It's almost like a la carte right now. Some of these things we have to take. I don't know how we get by without budgeting for a couple of these things, but there's just a lot of options. And I think what would be helpful tonight is getting an idea of how's the public safety committee feeling about things, right? Not only what we heard about tonight from our 2 dispatchers, but also some of the things Rick presented now.
So, and then the budget, 2026 budget 1 and budget 2 reflect only having 1 dispatch person? Okay.
Just for reference here, I did know, like, generally.
Can you turn your mic on? I'm sorry.
Right. And I did, just for conversational purposes, indicate like what is the general cost per month of the second shift dispatch, so that you understood like what does that account to. But yes, they both include not having the dispatch. For those in the audience, after the original budget was submitted from the chief, and then after we got the union contract settled, the total ask was $163,000. And that was the type of number that we were trying to wrestle with. And so that number got pared back greatly in order to meet budget. And just for everybody's reference, right now, when we're looking at levy limits about how much we can actually tax, we are $1,600 up against levy limits. Okay. In the past, we've been $50,000, $90,000. We've had more cushion. We've tried to maintain more cushion as a council. So basically, we're at capacity. We're still expecting some numbers to get in, but we're at capacity in terms of levy limits.
With what budget?
Certainly with this budget 1, unless things change, which again, I'm optimistic that some of the additional numbers that still have to come in, which is health insurance numbers, highway aid, let's hope, fingers crossed, some of the state aid numbers are looking positive, but until we get all those numbers in, the budget team can't really react and make additional changes because there's, there's still too many unknowns, and those are big numbers. So what I can tell you is, based on our forecasting, this budget right here puts it right up against levy limit. This budget right here, if all the other forecasting, all those assumptions stay true, then we're going to have to find $20,000 to $28,000 from some other budget just to make this work. And that doesn't include returning full-time dispatch for that second shift. So like, when Steve asked the question, like, where does the money come from? That's a real question. And again, that's why we're here, is this is what the budget team came up with. And then this is, the chief's rebuttal to that. And now it's sort of your guys's opportunity to say, like, what do you think, right? Inform the budget team about how you're thinking about it. And if you want us to go back and look at something, now's the time to really bring it up.
It seems like we've been in this situation before with the police department. And I remember a time, Rick, when you came back and made a lot of cuts. And then when it came time at the end of the year, you were over budget. And my concern is that you're going to do that again. I mean, I know you're trying to meet what we're asking you to do, but part of it's in the management.
Correct. But the ones where I was over was your overtime. We are having 2 officers, that leave. We had 2 huge payouts during those times that are unforeseeable. So the budget numbers, that I have control over, whether it's uniforms and fuel, auto, I think I was very close to being almost on par. So the ones that I have control over is not management. That is unforeseeable things. So I kind of disagree with that comment. So I have no control over, overtime or having, full staff. So, doing your best to, stay within budget. But yes, there are some unforeseen ones. We had quite a few injuries, workman's comps and, a lot of, 1, 2 retirements as well. So, you can't see that. It's just like kind of placing insurance. We don't ask the employees, if they're going to take a stipend or not. So if all of a sudden they all decide not to take the stipend, is that management or is that just what happened?
Yeah.
Life happens. Life happens.
Thank you for responding.
Yeah, and Chief, I think that's a super fair point. My particular concern about this budget isn't to do with the wages or anything, things that could happen. It has more to do with a couple line items that, and you and I and Bobby talked about this, is things like the fuel. Are we budgeting enough? Are we being realistic, right? And I went back and actually looked at this because I had the same thought Crystal had. In 2023, you made the cuts to those to meet budget. And then you were over in things like the fuel and the communications, the TR control. I mean, a lot of like what we refer to more as like the discretionary line items. And then the very next budget cycle, you asked for them back. And the question, I remember I saw the email, was like, you're asking for these things back after you just cut them next year. And I remember your response was like, well, we need these things. It wasn't really realistic to cut them last year. We need them. And so I'm worried that we're kind of getting into a cyclical pattern here where I think you're doing your best to prioritize. I'm just worried that some of those things that, like your cars, the maintenance, the fuel on them, some of the TR controls, all those things that really add up. I worry about how much we can really say they're going to be lower, but truly, can we expect them to be lower is I guess maybe a little bit of what Crystal was getting at as well.
More questions? I don't have any. Go ahead, Steve.
It's being on the budget team and knowing that we're now possibly looking to cut another possibly 27,000, 28,000. Do we have a rough estimate of when we're going to get those other numbers in to then have a more clear picture of what we need to do?
Sorry, I'm going to let Lori jump in here. She's been.
The health insurance numbers we're hoping to have by the end of the month here,
This month?
this month.
Okay.
Our new brokers are working very hard at trying to get those numbers in. The other like property liability stuff that's still underway, but hopefully within the next few weeks, we'll have some information on that as well. Highway aids, we're hoping will be coming in any day. They're actually a little behind on some of those. So A lot of them should be coming up in the next, I would say in the next couple of weeks. We should have a lot of them.
Yeah. So in the timing, and this is part of the reason why we have the process on the timeline it is we're going to get through committees. We did 3 tonight, and then we'll do admin budget on the 30th. And then by that point, we'll have kind of heard from all the committees about how they're feeling about the changes the budget team made, and we'll have the hard numbers in tow regarding all the items Lori talked about. And then the budget team can look at it again and say, okay, we've got a lot more information now. How do we want to amend our budget draft?
Do you have any thoughts? Okay. Seth, do you have any thoughts? I don't know if you can see the screen or not.
Yeah, no, I'm been looking in. It's for whatever reason, I don't recall digesting all of this budget process as I was in my first month last year at this time. So it's just kind of wrapping my head around what all is involved. And I don't know when the conversations take place, but I don't know. My thought is that when do we decide that fines and tickets need to be higher to try and justify supporting a police department? If there's always a money shortage, then there needs to be other routes to supporting it. I don't know. And just things I'm thinking of. I don't know when those are the right discussions, but it's got to be a tough spot to try and take away from what already feels short. So
Rick,
Thank you, Seth.
address
This
that?
is Rick.
I was just
I was
you
just
wanna
gonna say,
address that?
just for clarification, all the parking citations, traffic citations, all the money that is made through court costs and I guess just the municipalities does not actually go to the police department for obviously good reason. So then we're just out there trying to make money for ourselves, so that it will go into the general fund goes into City Hall. So the city gets it, however, it can't go to the PD.
no, I appreciate that thought. That definitely makes sense. I appreciate your work and effort.
So I will say this, the budget team, when we sat for one of our 12 hours of deliberating on this, we did talk about additional revenue generation. That's actually something the mayor brought up quite a bit, is some different ideas of revenue generation. And so at one of the earlier meetings, I talked about, we're tied up against levy limits. Do we feel like we have a couple levers that we can pull? My point is like, there may be some things we can do in the future to improve where we're at from revenue, but it's complicated and they're not without their drawbacks. And they're going to take time to like figure out if we can do them and what we should do with them. And again, is the community okay with us doing them, right? Like when you talk about revenue generation, that just doesn't come out of thin air. It's going to have to be generated from somebody. And so those are all considerations that we have to make. And so, but we did have probably 2 hours of conversation about revenue generation, and it's something that's very much on the horizon for us, but not something we can execute prior to approving this budget.
I appreciate that insight.
Thanks, Seth. The only thing I'd like to add is that with some of the cuts that were proposed, I do know that strains you, and I'm a little concerned, as Nate and Crystal mentioned, the same, fuel. The only way to save fuel is to not drive as much. And when you're not driving as much, we're not patrolling as much. When we're not patrolling as much, there's issues with that. So I do have some concerns with some of the budget lines that you are proposing, because you cut them once and to that point, like we found a need to get them back. So I hate to see you cut something and
I'm
that's going
not
to put
cutting
you in a
fuel though.
bind.
I'm not cutting fuel.
Sure, but the TR control and those other few, the uniforms and the training, and I know, training, we do have the benefit of having you here, and hopefully training certainly doesn't suffer. I think we have some of the best trained officers
Thank you.
in anywhere,
We do.
frankly. And so I don't want to see that slip either, right? So I guess that's just my position. I just worry on some of the lines. You're trying hard and I appreciate that, but I just hate to see quality of the ability, the service you're able to deliver from a law enforcement perspective. I know we talked earlier when and then Corinna were talking about some of the public services in terms of like the community room and those kinds of things that might slip, and those are unfortunate but they may have to happen. But I think quality of policing slipping is a real concern I have, and I don't want to see that happen. So.
So at the front of this meeting, we had obviously a long conversation about dispatch. And I think part of what would be helpful for this group, and I think part of the reason why that was made its own standalone sort of item is I think we really, at least myself, speaking for myself on the budget team, I would really like to understand where people are at with that. I understand that with that, this committee itself can't make budget changes. That's a council as a whole decision about what the budget looks like. But we do look for feedback, of course. That's why you hear from the committee on some of the changes that were made. And because obviously that's been a large topic tonight, does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Just looking at the numbers, it looks like it's unfortunate, but it looks like we have to remove one of the dispatch positions just to even begin to work the number down to where we can make it work. It's not the direction, definitely don't want to do that, but it's like, that's what we're up against right now.
Other thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about this. I guess, there's two ways of making a budget work. One is cutting services and one is revenue. And I know you guys are trying your best to do both. And I just hope we can make it work and not have to cut that position, but we have to do what we have to do. I mean, I think it needs to be looked into a little bit more, as far as I'm concerned, but not make any rash decisions.
I think just to be
I know
clear,
it's not a rash decision because you guys have been,
right.
Working at it for a long time, but
Both budget 1 and budget 2, which budget 2 is Rick's proposed budget, both of them include eliminating that position. So just so everybody's clear, I think Rick's budget includes a little bit of money for it to extend it just a little bit into the next year. Whereas the other one, the original one, was to end it at the end of the year. So I think, just so everybody understands that, both budgets include cutting it. Just one is at the end of 2025 and the other one is shortly into 2026. Do you have anything else, Rick or Bobby? I haven't heard. Want to make sure you have an opportunity if you've got something. Anybody else? Is there anything that you want? I mean, your comments will certainly be noted with the budget team when this comes back and work through these things. Is there anything else that well, you're there too. I guess we're all there. So.
Oh, I'll just say I got a copy of the presentation from Bobby, and per Todd's comments, I think, like you said, I think I heard you trail off there, but say give it another look, right? And just really double check that if this is what we're going to do, this is the right position.
right. And then also the health insurance numbers and the highway aid and some of the numbers, if they come in shortly, hopefully we have enough time to get them input and see what that's going to do too.
Right. Yeah.
Rick, when you were looking at these numbers and with the elimination of dispatch, I'm not sure how much of their positions will work over to the officers. Was that taken into consideration with additional hours that they would have to do in response to them not having a second dispatcher? Just curious if that would be an issue with the wages as they're presented now. for hours on, you see where I'm going with that question? Sorry. I'm not sure how much of the dispatchers, if that second dispatcher is not there, some of that work would end up on you or Bobby or any of the other officers, but was that ever taken into consideration in the wages if there's extra hours that they have to be taken into consideration for that?
It was discussed. It's gonna be significant for what we're gonna have to absorb, but hold on. Suppose you can't clarify another way. Was it considered with the wages of the dispatch, the 5, or ours?
Yours or any of the officers, because that, if those duties, those hours or whatever that they have to do ends up on other officers or on
Oh.
yours, is that taken into consideration in those budget line items when that second one was taken away in your budget?
It was in consideration, but we didn't do anything with the numbers, if that answers your question. So like some of the duties will have to come on to some of the officers, but most of it will be on us.
So some of your other ones could be understated with what you need if dispatch goes away, that's where I'm trying to
Yes.
bring that up.
Where do you suspect that would be?
If any of the officers have to take on any of these duties,
Hmm.
where they end up having to have more hours, that can impact the budget in other areas. That's where I was going with that.
But their budget, their time is based on full time. So any additional hours they work would be overtime, which can't.
Okay, now I'm following you. Yes, it's not gonna be in overtime. It's not gonna change our budget. You know, if somebody has to do help or, like with us, it's not gonna add any hours to our schedule for overtime and or open records or UCRs or a few other things. So our hours are gonna stay the same. There will be no overtime or comp time associated. We just have to absorb it. So to be honest with you, you're gonna see us less out and about. You're gonna see, we're gonna be in the office a lot more absorbing the caseload.
And what I was gonna say is I felt like a lot of what the presentation from dispatch spoke to that specifically, right? Like I think the entirety of Annette and Corinna's conversation was talking about like, this is how much work that needs to get done. A lot of it was some other stuff about like, hey, we're open to the public. We offer these amenities, DMV, things like that. But there was some things that I think they were mentioning is like, this workload's got to shift to somebody. So I heard that, but no, exactly as the chief said, like, it's not like the overtime numbers were pumped up in order to absorb that, because then you're not making any headway.
Right. You guys were concerned about him not hitting budget because things could be over. That's my concern if they end up having to move it to another line item. So that was my point.
And that's the unfortunate reality of this budget situation is there's opportunity cost to it, right? Is that there are some things that we wish we could be doing instead. And you and I deal with that every single day of like, there's things we wish we could be doing instead that would be really transformational for the community. And sometimes we're stuck doing some transactional minutia stuff, right? And so I think to Steve's point, that's kind of where the budget team landed is don't want to, but what can we do, right? And looking at the landscape. And again, I'm speaking on behalf of the budget team coming out there. This is like the best of the bad options.
Thank you. Anything else from you guys? Crystal? No? No? Seth? Are you good? All right. Action wise, I don't know if there's really any action to take on this one. Thank you for all the discussion and for everything. Thank you guys for working on that and stuff. We'll move on to item number 7, which is review and approval of September 16th, 2025 meeting minutes.
This is Crystal, and I'd move approval of those minutes without additions or corrections.
Steve, I'll second.
I got a motion, a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Number 8, police and fire department updates. It's a non-action item. Rick, do you want to?
I said mine last week, so you just saw the numbers, so I was gonna bring your numbers next in 2 weeks, so I do not have anything.
Thank you. Chief?
Same, basically, we just talked last week, but just continuing to move the old station over the new station. It's moving along slow but sure. We're getting there. Hopefully another 2-3 weeks, we'll have a majority of it done. Then the other thing I just wanted to mention in public is we've got a retired firefighter. I think he retired, 6-7 years ago, was a very active member. Did a lot of things for us, but he just passed away Sunday. So kind of crappy news, but so.
Tell him who it is, Guy
Guy
Berry.
Guy Berry. So some of you
He'd
probably
been,
know
I'm sure Matt, he worked with him. and
Guy Berry.
Some of the folks,
Yeah.
sheriff certainly, I'm sure knows him, and
You know,
that, I'm sure, yeah.
so just
So, yeah.
keep him in your prayers and his family and stuff. But yeah, that one will hit a little bit. He's been retired, but doesn't matter. He's always one of ours. So we'll work through that. But other than that, like I said, we talked about most of it last week. So thank you.
Thank you. Item number 9 is the second period for public comment. Any members of the public wish to make a public comment? Now would be the time. Nobody in the house, anybody online? I don't know if we have anybody.
You want to make a public comment?
Nate, can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead.
Hi, Nate. This is Chad Hoyam from 1070 DeFreeze Street. So I've been listening to this meeting tonight about the budget for the police department, and a comment that Steve Willis just made about it almost looks like this is the only way. My comment to that is, what's the plan next year? Because I listened to the sheriff say that they're going to have extra workload. So next year, are we going to look at cutting the final dispatcher and cutting that service completely for city residents? Because there are a lot of city residents, which Karina and Annette spoke of, that work until 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And a lot of services get offered to the residents out of that department. So before you guys make a decision and maybe regret it in a year or two, think about what you're actually proposing to do, because I think we need to look in other areas in the department, in the city, to save funds, to save the police department's face to the public, because that's what it is. They are the representatives to the public. It was the same. I spoke when you guys were talking about cutting a street department worker who retired, not replacing it. They are the ones that provide the service to the city residents. That's what we pay our taxes for, is services. And if we lose that connection, I think we're going backwards as management for the city. So I guess that's one thing I wanted to say, and I hope you guys take that into consideration.
Thanks, Chad. Anybody else? I would take a motion to adjourn.
This is Todd. I make a motion to adjourn.
Steve, I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Sorry, Seth. We're adjourned.
Thank you, guys.